chess friends, I hope you are doing well. Today, I have an intriguing and thrilling chess game that I played against LeelaZero. This game is full of brilliant moves and adventurous strategies. I will share the tactics and strategies I employed in this game against her. So let's get started without wasting any time. I started the game with e4, and she responded with e5 and then knight to f6. After knight f3, the game entered the three knights variation. From black's perspective, she could have played knight c6, but playing pawn to d5 or d6 is also a crucial idea in this variation. She responded with d6, providing an open diagonal for the bishop. She could also go with c5 or c6, followed by knight d7, bishop e7, and castling. I responded with d4 to open up the center and activate my bishops on c4 and g5. This way, knight d5 can come to pressure the f6 knight. After knight d7, I played bishop to c4, attacking the pawn on f7 alongside the knight on g5. She responded with bishop e7, intending to castle. After both sides castled, I played rook to e1, activating the rook on this half-open file. I wanted to maneuver my knight by playing knight e2, followed by knight g3, and then moving the knight to f5, creating a critical and problematic situation on the kingside and for the dark square bishop. Leela is a brilliant player, and she responded with pawn to c6. She wanted to push her pawns on b5 and a5, simultaneously opening up the diagonal for the queen, and also bringing the knight to b6 to attack the bishop. Additionally, the c6 move allows her to push forward the pawn to d5, playing a major role in the center structure and position. So I responded with pawn to a4, intending to move my rook to a3 to join forces on the kingside if necessary. I could also push my pawn to a5, protecting the b5 square from her pawn push. That was my strategy. At this juncture, Leela could go with rook e8 or h6, but she decided to go with queen e8. This is a waiting move because after queen d8, bishop e3, she moved her rook to the e8 square. It provides space for the knight to maneuver to f8, followed by g6. She can also move back her bishop to open up the file for the rook. At this point, some of you might consider playing knight g5 to attack the pawn on f7, however, this would be a poor move because black can simply slide her rook to f8, therefore, after a5 and center exchanges on the board, this a5 move guards the b6 square and simultaneously offers the rook entry on a3, from where the rook can potentially arrive at the g3 square. After the center exchanges and h6 by LeelaZero to guard that square, I immediately strike in the center by playing e5. You can see that my crisscross bishops are putting pressure on black's kingside, and my knight can join the attack on the e5 square. After the exchanges, my knight on e5 attacks the pawn on f7. At this juncture, some 200 rated players might think of playing rook f8 to guard that pawn. However, I can play the cunning move knight to g6, simultaneously attacking both of black's pieces. The f7 pawn is pinned to the king, so after the rook moves, I can even sacrifice my rook on e7. What an astonishing move. The rook is well guarded by the knight, and after rook takes e7, I will capture the knight on f6. The knight on d7 cannot capture the bishop as it will cause black to lose the queen on d8, which is why after pawn captures, my queen will arrive at g4 to invade the kingside. The diagonal is open, the file is open, and the king cannot move. Additionally, the king cannot move to h7 because bishop d3 can ruin black's position completely. Some skilled chess players might consider playing king h7, intending to capture the knight on g6, but it is a completely poor move because I can respond with bishop d3, sacrificing the knight right away to capture the pawn on g6. You might feel relieved seeing that the rook is protecting the 7th rank, but I can capture the pawn on h6 and give another check on c4. The king cannot move because it is essentially paralyzed and under severe threat. After rook moves to f7, I can play queen g6 check and e8, winning the rook on the next move. With the exposed king, my rook can move to a4 to create a critical situation for black. This game is completely in my favor, and black will lose. So let me tell you a motivational quote in sudden. You can't defeat the darkness by keeping it caged inside of you. So, returning to the position, we saw that rook to f8 is not possible, which is why after knight takes e5, bishop takes e5 will lead to queen takes d1 and a queen exchange. Therefore, I captured it with my rook. As the bishop moved back, she offered me a rook exchange, which I accepted. Consequently, we have queen to h5 to attack the pawn on f7, she responded with queen e7, and after my knight reached e4, it became clear that the bishop had an open diagonal, the other bishop was controlling a key diagonal, and the knight was creating potential harm in the center. Playing knight to f6 or d6 is completely vulnerable, which is why some might consider knight c7, but this is a completely poor move as I can respond with bishop c5, attacking the queen and bishop simultaneously, protected by the knight. As the queen moves back, I can join another attacker with my rook. I can even move my rook to a3 to play rook to h3. After you capture on c5, I can respond with the brilliant move knight f6 check, which forks the king and queen. This forces you to capture my knight, opening the file where my rook can easily attack. Playing king h8 or h7 is vulnerable because the queen can capture the pawn, and bishop d3 can easily disrupt your position at the h7 square. Therefore, you have to play king to f8. After I pick up your bishop with a check, it becomes evident that the king has no escaping squares because they are all covered by my pieces. After the queen blocks, rook g8 will arrive. And after you capture, I can easily grab your queen. You will be left without a queen and I will win the game. So, going back to the position, we saw that playing any normal or natural looking move is completely vulnerable because the f7 pawn is under attack. Leela responded with bishop e6, trying to block the bishop's diagonal. I responded by playing a strategic move, bishop to c5, because I am confident in my chess abilities. The bishop is attacking your pieces, and after I attack your bishop, she captured my light square bishop. Capturing the dark square bishop was not viable. After the capture, I even sacrificed my bishop on g7 because the knight cannot capture the bishop on g7, knight to f6 will fork your queen and king simultaneously. Therefore, you had to capture my bishop with your king, which actually happened in the game. This made the king very exposed. The knight is creating much pressure on these squares, which is why my rook came to a3 to voluntarily go to g3 and create some pressure. The king cannot escape to the h-file as rook g3 will seize the file completely, creating a dangerous situation for you. Some might consider playing king f8 to try to escape the king to d8, but after I capture on h6 and play queen g5 check, it becomes clear that your king cannot reach d8, the king has to move back to f8, and after I play queen c5 check, if the king moves to g8, the rook can deliver a decisive blow by playing rook to g3, attacking the king. Your king will be completely exposed. After you block with your knight, knight to f6 check can come and ruin your king and queen's position completely, forking your pieces and putting the game in my favor. So let me share a beautiful quote with you. If you fall behind, run faster. Never give up, never surrender, and rise up against the odds. Returning to the variations, we saw that king to f8 is not viable, which is why she responded with queen to d4, trying to protect and safeguard the king along the diagonal with the knight and the bishop. After I play rook to g3 check, the king moves back, and king e7 follows. You might be tempted to safeguard the king by moving to the queen side, but it is a complete failure. At the present moment, the f6 square is well protected by the knight. So, I had to play solidly and make a game-changing move, which is why I played queen h4 check, checking the king. The king cannot move to the d7 square because of rook c3. This move creates much pressure on the black king side because the knight is located in the center, which will create a difficult situation for you. The queen is also there. I don't want to cover the entire variation because it involves more than 10 to 15 moves, which would be overwhelming and hard to remember, because your brain is nothing but a nut or full of mud. So if the king moves to d7 to try to escape, I can disrupt your queen's position by playing c3, the queen has to move, and if it goes to any natural-looking square such as d5, then I can respond with queen h7 check. At this juncture, some of you might consider blocking the check by moving the queen to f7, I can follow up with knight c5 check, forcing the king to move, and then rook d7 will arrive, checking the king and queen simultaneously, and you will lose the queen for just one rook. Returning to the position, noticing that the rook is creating a discovered check on the next move and the king cannot go to d7, Leela tried to block the attack by playing bishop e6, blocking the rook's attack. After queen h7 check happens on the board, it becomes clear that the king cannot go to the d-file because of rook d3, which will win your queen. Noticing that the king cannot go to the d-file, some might consider bishop to f7. But it is a completely poor move because it exposes the rook file completely. I can respond with knight g5, voluntarily attacking the bishop on f7 and making a discovered attack on the king. Your game will be over. At this juncture, Leela decided to go with kf8, trying to safeguard her king, but her king is completely exposed. After giving her a check and the king moving to e7, followed by queen d1 king h2 and queen d5 to protect the diagonal, my rook is creating much pressure, and the knight is applying pressure in the center of the board. The black knight is completely passive, so I played pawn to f4, after the king moves, a queen check follows, and I pick up the pawn on b7, attacking the rook on a8. Your rook cannot move because I can easily capture your pawn on a7. After the queen moves back, I played the brilliant and cunning move knight g5, sacrificing the knight to expose the e5 file and attack your bishop. After the capture and recapture on the board, it becomes clear that the black king is exposed. When my rook goes to the h6 square, I am threatening to play rook to h8, checkmating the black king. It is a complete deadlock situation for you. Black cannot do anything, all his pieces are on the first rank, like lazy bears. But LeelaZero is not lazy. She decided to go with queen to c7, trying to offer a queen exchange. However, I am very skilled in chess, so after I played rook check and grabbed her rook on a8, she gave me a check by playing f3. I think it was the second check black gave to my king. As my king retreated, she picked up my rook, and I picked up her knight. A couple of moves later, we had queen g5 check followed by b4, forming a pawn chain on the queen side. I can easily grab your pawn on g2, and I am completely winning the game, as I can easily pick up all the pawns and promote to a new queen. Since you have split pawns on the queen side, after the queen moves, the king captures the pawn. After a couple of moves, we have king to f3 followed by queen f1, after some more checks, we have queen c7, and I pick up the pawn. A few moves and checks later, the king takes a7, and you can see that I have 3 pawns promoting to a new queen. I checkmate decisively on a8. This game was very exciting and well played. If you like my content, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Wishing you all the best. Bye bye.